Every time we hear the words lawyers boycott courts, it sounds dramatic, doesn't it? We imagine lawyers shouting slogans, courts standing still, and justice being paused, even for a single day. But have you ever stopped to ask, why does this happen? Is it anger, ego, or there's a deeper story behind the silence in the corridors of justice? Today, let's talk about that. Not just as a legal issue, but as a mirror reflecting something much larger about power, protest, and the rise of justice. Let's begin with a simple truth. Lawyers are the backbone of justice system. Without them, the system literally cannot function. Yet, there are days when they themselves decide not to appear in court. That's where the tension begins. Because unlike other professions, when lawyers go on strike, justice stops. People waiting for bail, for custody, for relief, everything comes to a standstill. There's a famous Supreme Court judgment, ex-Captain Harish Uppal versus Union of India in the year 2003, where the court made it absolutely clear. Lawyers have no right to go on strike under Article 19(1) subclause C of the Indian Constitution or give a call for boycott. Justice M.B. Shah said the right to practice law and the duty to attend court go hand in hand. By abstaining, you're denying justice to those who trust you. Strong words, right? But if it's illegal, why do these boycotts keep happening? See, in most cases, these boycotts are not about personal gain. They are about frustration, about a system that often fails the very people who defend it. Think about it. Lawyers work under immense pressure. Delays, corruption, inadequate infrastructure, and sometimes even threats to their safety. When courts fail to address these deeper issues, a boycott becomes a desperate cry for attention. A symbolic pause saying, listen to us before we break. In Tamil Nadu, lawyers have boycotted proceedings to protest against police brutality. In Telangana and Andhra Pradesh, they have demanded local benches of high courts so that people don't have to travel hundreds of kilometers for justice. And in Jammu and Kashmir, boycotts have sometimes reflected local political tensions tied to autonomy and identity. So, yes, it's political at times, emotional at others. But almost always, it's a symptom of a wound that has been ignored too long. Now, let's look at the other side, the people who suffer. When lawyers boycott courts, cases don't move. A small business owner waiting for a stay order, a young woman seeking maintenance, a man in custody waiting for bail. For them, even one day of delay can feel like eternity. I remember talking to a client once, an old man fighting a property dispute for over 20 years. He said, every time there's a strike, it feels like my life is on a pause again. How long can I keep waiting for justice that never arrives? That hit hard because behind every file number there is a human being with a story, a struggle, and a limited time on earth. That's what strike costs, not just productivity but hope. Here's where the heart of the debate lies. Lawyers have a duty to the system, but they also have a duty to their conscience. When something wrong happens, say an attack on a lawyer or a blatant judicial apathy, silence feels like betrayal. But the Supreme Court in Harish Uppal's case made a point worth remembering. If a lawyer feels injustice, they can protest peacefully by wearing a black armband, giving press statements, or taking collective legal action, but not by boycotting courts. It's a fine balance between standing up for justice and not abandoning those who depend on you for it. And maybe That's the lesson for all of us to take in our lives too. Sometimes we are so busy fighting systems that we forget the people who rely on us every day. The true test of protest isn't how loud we shout, but how responsibly we act. The lawyer's boycott isn't a legal issue, it's a metaphor for our lives. We all have moments when we want to boycott something, our job, relationships, or responsibilities, because things feel unfair. But maybe the better question is, how do we make change without abandoning the very space that needs us? In life, as in law, reform doesn't happen through absence, it happens through presence. Through showing up even when you're tired, through fighting from within, not walking away. Because every time we boycott something important, we create a void, and justice, opportunity, or growth waits a little longer. For lawyers, it's about rethinking how to protest effectively without halting justice. Professional bodies like the Bar Council of India have begun taking stricter stances, even suspending licenses for repeated strikes. Mediation with judicial administration, formal grievance mechanisms, and collective legal petitions can become powerful tools of change. And for the rest of us, it's a reminder to question how to respond to unfairness in our own lives. Do we pause everything in anger? Or do we channel that frustration into something productive? So the next time you hear lawyers have boycotted courts, don't rush to judge. Understand that beneath that silence lies a complex conversation about duty, dignity, and dissent. But also remember, silence should never become a habit. Justice delayed is justice denied, not just in courts but in life. And the moment we stop showing up, whether in courtrooms or in our personal battles, the system and we start losing. If today's story made you think differently about justice, protest, or responsibility, don't just move on. Share this video with someone who believes change only happens by walking away. Because maybe, just maybe, the real courage lies in staying. And if you want to keep exploring the intersection of law, life, and lessons, hit subscribe. And let's keep asking the hard questions together. Take care. Bye.